and welcome back to Sunday Supplement. Welcome back to Riyadh Al Samurai, Mark Ogden and Charlie Wyatt. More on the Carabao Cup final to come on the show, but let's focus on what was a dramatic day in the Premier League yesterday, not least at the Amex Stadium. And Liverpool, a 10th defeat in the Premier League so far this season. The Sunday Telegraph goes with a rather damning headline there, Slot running out of excuses, with Danny Welbeck celebrating his 2 goals there that won that game for Brighton. We'll be focusing on Danny Welbeck and his England omission in a moment, Mark, but let's focus on a damaging result for Liverpool in the fight for the Champions League places. 2-1 defeat. Arne Slot tried to give a few reasons, some might say excuses, for why Liverpool performed much worse than they did against Galatasaray in midweek in the Champions League. Were they valid words, or a man feeling the heat?
I think he's feeling the heat. I saw his pre-match interview and he was almost making excuses before the game for it not going well. I thought it was a really strange approach for a Liverpool manager. They usually, talk it up, talk you Liverpool, you can win every game you play. But he's almost like finding reasons that they weren't going to win the game, and then obviously that's how it turned out. And look, he's had bad luck with injuries. Ekitike going off early, Salah being injured in midweek. I just think he's got problems that he can't solve right now, and that isn't all his fault. Defensively, they were all over the place yesterday. I thought Konate was poor. Van Dijk for the second goal hasn't really been pulled up as much as he should have been. The full-backs aren't great. Defensively, they needed more reinforcements in the summer. He didn't get them. Now, is that on him, or is that on the people who are, given the job to bring these players in? So I think you've got to give him a little bit of a pass on that, but ultimately he has to work with the players he's got, and he's not doing that. And I speak to people who cover Liverpool, a lot of Liverpool fans, and they say that the football has just gone boring, basically. It's very predictable, it's very slow. I think the stat was mentioned during the game yesterday about how little they're beating teams in terms of running on the pitch. I think Brighton ran them by 5 kilometres yesterday, so they're not running as much as they used to under Jurgen Klopp. And it seems the Klopp team that kind of in transition last season won the league because it was still Klopp's team as much as Slot's. Now it's Slot's team. It's a different approach, and it's not the Liverpool that we've come to know for the last 10 years. And he's running out of ways to make it work. And I think it does feel like an inevitability that at some point he will lose his job, and I imagine the summer that he'll go, because I think they'll qualify for the Champions League but the way they're playing and the way that he's getting what he's getting out of his players, it's just not enough.
Just picking up on it. Sorry, go on, Riyadh.
I just think it's interesting what you're saying there about the running stats as well, because there's 2 or 3 times yesterday where you see Van Dijk absolutely screaming for people to get back and help him out, first goal included. It's like, where has that appetite gone? Where is the actual effort as well? And I think you can kind of accept a lack of quality, but what about a lack of effort? We don't normally talk about that with Liverpool, and it's been creeping in this season. We're talking about a side now that's lost a third of their league games, just under. It is an astonishing collapse. It's like, headline here is running out of excuses. Is he running out of time as well? Because how many aspects of that Liverpool squad would you go through looking at the way they're playing? These aren't secret issues, whether it's responding to man marking, whether it's responding to direct play, Trent going, all of these factors. They've had time to look at these problems, to assess them. What are Slot's solutions? Because that's how we're going to sort of measure him as a manager. And so far, what we've seen is the side getting progressively worse. So I think if you're Liverpool and you're making that big decision this summer, that's going to be the worrying aspect. How much of an improvement has he been able to coach in this side across the course of a campaign? And at the moment, the answers are pretty concerning.
It doesn't help himself with some of his excuses. Yesterday it was because it was a lunchtime kick-off on the back of a Champions League midweek game, when earlier in the season he said that he didn't mind Saturday lunchtime kick-offs because they train at 12 o'clock. Well, he's got to try and be at the very least consistent, hasn't he, even if his team isn't. And equally, the recruitment, obviously they spent £450 million in the summer. This is not all his fault, but I still don't understand. Once they'd identified Mark Gay, once they knew he was going to join and he was literally on his way there, why they didn't just pay a little bit over the odds. It didn't make any sense. If it was an extra 10, an extra £15 million, because now they're going to have to spend, obviously, a huge amount to get a player who may not be in Gay's class. And the other one, of course, is I don't understand why they let Joel Quansah go. Even if he wanted to leave, they could have told him, you're not going, or you're going on loan, but for £30 million, they've let a versatile defender go to the Bundesliga to Leverkusen. He's in the England squad. So that was another crazy decision.
And also, you've got to look back last summer. We talk about, at the time, Liverpool were getting lots of praise that they're the best club in the market. They've won the transfer market, as people were saying. But some of the decisions they made last summer were strange. Obviously, they let Trent's contract run out, so he left. The Mo Salah situation, extending his contract now, looking back, looks like a bad idea because he's had a terrible season, huge money. He's not delivering. I'd imagine he'll go in the summer, but even Virgil van Dijk as well. Now, I can see why he couldn't let 2 or 3 of those goals last summer because the optics it would have had for a team that's won the league to let your biggest stars go. But really, on the basis of what they've delivered this year, you have to question mark, certainly Salah. And they let Darwin Núñez go. They let Luis Diaz go. Obviously, had the tragedy with Diogo Jota. But those 3 players, they were so important to the way that Liverpool played last year. They were so energetic up front. They worked so hard, and they enabled Salah to be what he was. Now, those have all gone now. And Salah hasn't got the people around him to do the running for him. So, obviously, Salah wasn't around yesterday, but all season we've seen this with Salah that he doesn't put the work in. If nobody else is putting the work in up front either, then you've got a problem. And that's Liverpool's problem at the moment, is that nobody's working hard enough, as Riyadh said. The midfield yesterday, Alexis McAllister's been, people running rings around him because he hasn't got the energy to cover the pitch. So, in every area of the pitch, they've got problems. Obviously, when Isak's back, maybe next season, Isak and Ekitike, great. They spent £450 million, as Charlie says, but they've got to spend maybe another 400 again this summer to rebuild the defence, rebuild the midfield. But have they got that money? And if they don't get in the Champions League, they definitely haven't got the money to do that.
Just on, in the Sunday Times, Hamza Kalik-Lunat was at the game as well. He's quite damning about Liverpool currently. He says beating Liverpool isn't special, it's routine, and that is the saddest indictment of Arne Slot's team as they slump to a 10th defeat in 31 league matches this season. They have got 2 opportunities, Ria, to qualify for next season's Champions League. Top 4, top 5, we think it's going to be in the Premier League. We'll get them Champions League next season. Or they could win the Champions League and get there that way. Is that going to be enough? One of those 2 routes, and one clearly is better than the other, to keep his job. If he was to do it via the league, compared to the Champions League, does he keep his job? But if he was to win the Champions League, compared to not getting it in the league, is that going to keep his job?
I think top. I don't know what the Liverpool hierarchy are thinking. I can't say how much grace he bought himself last season, which I've found to have been unfairly disparaged over time. It was almost the reflex straight off the bat was, well, it was Klopp's team. We know from countless other examples it's not as simple as just walking into another club and saying, off you go lads, go and have a game of football. But I think if he gets top 4, you would have to say that would be not necessarily top 4, but if he somehow gets his way into the Champions League, you'd have to, given where they are now, you'd have to give him sufficient credit. It would have been a good end to the season. I don't think it's likely.
Just very finally, before we go to St James's Park, because we're going to preview Newcastle against Sunderland, of course. Just going back to the Sunday Telegraph's piece on Slot running out of excuses, there is a picture of Danny Welbeck, who scored both of those goals. He's been in the news this week, responded to his England omission in the best way possible. Were you surprised he wasn't in the squad, Mark, and should he have been?
I'm not surprised he wasn't in the squad. I mean, was he 35 now, Danny Welbeck? It's a long time since he was in the England squad. I think sometimes players have a good domestic season, but it doesn't mean they're going to make this. Well, I know Danny's played for England in the past, but I think they've gone with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's had a decent season at Leeds. I'd question both of their fitness records, but I think it was one or the other. And I think Tuchel's decided to go for the younger option because, well, he's younger and he's a bit more versatile, maybe.
I mean, Tuchel's spoken about the heat next summer. He's not going to pick a 35-year-old. Particularly, this is a backup to Harry Kane. And so if Kane gets injured, they're going to look to have someone potentially. He's not going to have 35-year-old Welbeck.